But I think that that will change over time. I think that we're heading into a period where it's going to be seen as a safer haven. And, for those of us who can't do that and just want a safe, place to put your money, or, in a 5-year time window, I am highly confident that the performance of Bitcoin is going to be really good. Investing in a currency or an asset that will protect you from inflation, which in my opinion, there's just nothing that even compares to Bitcoin.
What's really next for Bitcoin? Lawrence Lepard thinks we're on the edge of a major price surge, but with a twist. Could Bitcoin reach $200,000? And if it does, will we see a dramatic crash back to $130,000? Lepard shares his thoughts on major catalysts like the Bitcoin ETF and why nation-states could be the biggest buyers next. You don't want to miss this.
By the end of 2025, I also made calls that Bitcoin would hit 100 by the end of 2024. Unfortunately, I was right about that, although it's bounced around at that level. But yeah, I do kind of think we'll see 200 on this particular cycle. And by the way, once we get there, we might correct back down to 130 or something. But, we are in a bull market cycle for Bitcoin based on, the past cycles tend to go 5x off the base. And the base was called the base, depends on what you want to look at, but say it's 40,000, 5x is 200. So yes, I think this cycle will take us to 200, but that's just a guess. I don't know for sure. Yeah, it could all be in the price. Well, certainly one that we're all watching, and we think that it's going to happen, is if the United States decides to unilaterally, create a strategic Bitcoin reserve, that could have an impact on the price. I think that, there's evidence that other countries are accumulating Bitcoin. And so there's further evidence that, in my mind, that this is starting, so this used to be a very individualized investment, just crazy Bitcoiners were buying it. Then it became a broader investment when the ETFs got approved and people like BlackRock, the largest fund manager in the United States, started buying it and approving of it. And now we're kind of moving into a situation where countries are buying it. El Salvador has been buying it, but they're kind of small and they were the first mover. I was at this Bitcoin conference in the Middle East at Abu Dhabi in December, early December, and Trump's son was there, and so was Paul Manafort, who's a Trump guy, who did part of the transition team. And it's pretty clear to me that they think that they're going to do a strategic reserve. And the other rumblings behind the scenes were that Abu Dhabi, Oman, or Abu Dhabi being UAE, Oman, and the Saudis are all accumulating Bitcoin. And in fact, I was told that they want to announce it, but the Trump administration said, can you wait until after we've announced ours? So, if you get to the point where nation states start to realize that this is important, look, nation states realize gold is important. That's why they hold gold on their balance sheet. That's why central banks have been net buyers of gold for the last 5 years. So let's get our terms right. Let's define safe haven. There's no doubt that Bitcoin is more volatile than gold. That's just a statistical fact.
Yeah.
If you want to define safe haven as low volatility, then no, gold is a better asset than Bitcoin. If your only measure is volatility. If your measure is alpha and potential upside, Bitcoin crushes gold. So, it kind of depends on what you're looking at it for. One criticism a lot of people have leveled at Bitcoin is they've said, well, it's really just a liquidity widget and it trades like the NASDAQ. When the NASDAQ goes down, Bitcoin goes down. And there isn't a safe haven bid for Bitcoin. And that's a fair criticism because there has been a pretty tight correlation. But I think that will change over time. I think that we're heading into a period where it's going to be seen as a safer haven. And I'll tell you why I say that, David. There's a really interesting chart. I don't have it in front of me right now, but if you run a chart of Bitcoin compared to the long bond, what used to be the safest haven financial asset? The long bond, the 10-year bond, the 30-year bond, right? It's the U.S. Treasury, good in default. It was good as gold, so to speak. If you look at Bitcoin and gold and compare to that, they are just absolutely crushing it in the last 3-4 years. And so the bonds are disappearing as a safe haven asset, in my opinion. And Bitcoin, gold has always been a safe haven asset. I think will continue to be one, but Bitcoin, I think it's going in that direction, just as with anything else. When you're in the early adoption stage of something, it's going to have a lot of volatility. A perfect example of this, Amazon. Bill Miller made a fortune by believing in Amazon early, betting big on it. Amazon had, and this is actually in the book I wrote, Amazon had multiple huge drawdowns, in the early years before it really got fully established. And that's very comparable to what Bitcoin is seeing. Let's not forget that Bitcoin has had corrections of 70 or 80%, and I don't think the next correction will be that large because I think there's more universal demand, but I don't think suddenly in a world where there aren't to be corrections in Bitcoin. I fully expect that we'll get a real big ramp on this cycle because that's how it tends to happen. And that at that point in time, everyone will be a little too ahead of themselves and we'll get a correction. And, so we go to 200, we come back to 120, something like that. I'm just making those numbers up, but it's kind of my guess. the model that I use that I think is a pretty decent model is the power law model developed by Fred Krueger and, a few other guys. And, it says right now fair value is kind of right around 80 or 90. And sometimes this thing gets to 2 standard deviations above fair value, which would take you up to 200. And sometimes it trades at half a standard deviation below fair value, which would take you back down to 60. So my view is, I don't look at it as something I trade. Okay. I hold it for a very long-term time frame because I think it's going to continue to compound at a rate that's higher than almost anything else out there. Maybe if you can pick a really good company that turns into an NVIDIA, you can beat it. But, for those of us who can't do that and just want a safe, place to put your money, where, in a 5-year time window, I am highly confident that the performance of Bitcoin is going to be really good. Well, so I think the way a lot of Bitcoiners and gold people handle it is, you've really, so money really serves 2 functions, right? You've got your money that you're saving, and then you've got your money that you use to pay your bills. And I know a lot of people who all their savings money is in either gold or Bitcoin or some combination of those two. And then as they need money to pay bills, they may sell a little bit and pay the bills, but they don't leave money sitting in dollars, just, unprotected, getting, 4% on treasury bills or something. It's not enough return. And so you kind of divide your money into 2 buckets, your savings bucket and your spending bucket. And, the dollar is obviously the, reserve currency of the world. It's the easiest thing to transact in. I will say this, the Lightning Network is getting better and better, and there will be ways to transact with Bitcoin more easily in the future, but it's still early days. And so, to me, it's a straightforward thing what I'm talking about are savings and investment, not dollars that you're going to spend. If you need the money tomorrow, for people who are all in on Bitcoin and have to sell Bitcoin, fine. If you want to do it that way, great. But I always keep a small balance of fiat to pay bills with.
Lawrence Lepard talks about Bitcoin's potential rise to $200,000, driven by a bull market cycle. He points out that previous cycles have seen a 5 times increase, and we're likely to see the same in this one. But what's really fueling this surge? It could be the launch of the Bitcoin ETF, which attracted major investment from firms like BlackRock. But the real game changer, according to Lepard, is the possibility of nation-states building strategic Bitcoin reserves. He hints that countries like the UAE and Saudi Arabia are already accumulating Bitcoin, possibly waiting for the right moment to announce it. This shift from individual investors to governments could cause Bitcoin's price to skyrocket. Stay tuned to learn how this all plays into the future of Bitcoin.
What'll happen over time is there'll be more and more ways to very easily convert it and convert back and forth.
Yeah.
And so that just is what it is. And we're still in very early days. One thing I'd like to point out, David, I think your listeners might enjoy it, is just the notion that this is, a lot of people I know think they're too late. They look at Bitcoin at 100,000, they know people who bought it cheaper. They think, how can I pay that? It's way too much. It's too high. And what they don't really understand is that it's going to continue going up for a very long time as it kind of slowly but surely replaces the dollar standard. And, there are $900 trillion of global financial assets out there. If you look at everything, if you include real estate, stocks, bonds, cash, etc. The Bitcoin market cap today is $2 trillion. So it's 0.2% of all of the assets out there. So, that's a very small percentage, a very small weighting. We're still very early days. And Bitcoin could go up in value 10x, which would take it from today's value of 100,000 up to $1 million a coin. And if it were to do so, it'd still only be 2% of total assets out there. And so, it's got quite some way to run. And I think that's one of the things a lot of people have a hard time getting their head around. I know when I was buying it, Max Kaiser bought it at $2 and I was buying it at 400. So, everybody feels like they're too late. But if we're correct that the fiat is slowly but surely getting debased and that this is a potential new monetary system, which I think it is, and my book talks about that, then you're really not too late. You just buy it and forget about it and hold on to it. And I think you wake up in 3 to 5 years. Let's say in 5 years, it's $1 million a coin, which is kind of what I expect. 5 years.
Sure.
Well, anybody coming along looking at it then is going to say, oh my God, you bought it at 100,000? Gee whiz, I wish I'd done that. And so, and then of course the person who buys it $1 million, that, 10 years later, it'll be at 10 million a coin and somebody will have the same conversation. So the reason I say all this, and the thing that I also think is important to point out with respect to it, is we've never seen anything like this, David. This is a commodity that has an inelastic supply that we can't make any more of it. So the 21 million, we're growing towards that. We're at 19 and change. So there's a little bit more being made. But I mean, basically, we're very close to the supply limit. And as a result of that, it doesn't matter what the price is, the schedule of supply isn't going to change. The price of gold goes to 10,000, which I fully expect in this cycle, by the way. We're going to mine more gold. I mean, they're going to dig more holes and produce more gold because it'll be profitable to do so. The issuance schedule of Bitcoin doesn't change. And that's why it's very hard for traditional financial people to get their head around the fact that this thing's going to go up a whole lot. It's a very asymmetric bet. And I've been saying that. The book says it. This is the most asymmetric thing I've seen in my 40 some odd years of making investments. And so there is a lot of fraud and malfeasance in some of these coins. And I think, I look at like Doge at $50 billion of value, and I'm just like, I don't get it. Or Fart coin recently went to $1.5 billion. There's a lot of nutty stuff. Having said all that, the layer two, so we've established, in my opinion, we've clearly established that Bitcoin is the superior store of value digital currency. It's digital gold. The medium of exchange currency for, online is still, I think, a little bit of a jump ball. I mean, hardcore Bitcoiners think that the Lightning Network will provide that. But there are people and intelligent people who have alternative views that another currency will emerge that will be a much better and more efficient and, widely used way to exchange money in cryptocurrencies, whether it be a stable coin or a Solana or, XRP. I mean, there are a lot of different things competing for that, but there's no guarantee that Lightning is going to be the solution. So I think we just have to wait and see. But the thing about this medium of exchange coin is by definition, it's not going to be a sound of money. It depreciates constantly. And so there are a lot of people there who use Bitcoin and Lightning to transact. But yes, the medium of exchange question is still a very undetermined and unanswered question in my mind. But that's a different issue than the issue of investing in a currency or an asset that will protect you from inflation, which in my opinion, there's just nothing that even compares to Bitcoin for that problem.
Lawrence Lepard's bold predictions show just how much potential Bitcoin has for growth. From its status as a store of value to the game-changing influence of nation-states, Bitcoin's future is looking bright, but volatile. Keep an eye on the developments Lepard discussed, because the next few years could be huge for Bitcoin. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more insights into the future of Bitcoin and crypto. Thanks for watching.